Flamboyant Brant will knock your enemies into next year, and today I'm gonna tell you how to build him best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So what echoes does this mighty swashbuckler desire? None other than 5-piece Tide-Breaking Courage. This set will be his tried and true best pick, if you have his main signature weapon. Otherwise, it's going to be nearly impossible to reach his minimum 250% ER requirement. If you have said weapon, then this easily comes out as his best echo set. A ton of attribute damage increases if you're able to meet the lofty demands that the set puts in front of you. This was indeed tailor-made for him, but you'll have a difficult time taking advantage of the full set if you can't meet the thresholds. 5-piece Molten Rift would be your alternative if you do not own his signature. It's much better to go for a damaging weapon and use Molten Rift, as opposed to coping with Overture so that you can use Tide-Breaking Courage. While this setup will be a lot weaker than Tide-Breaking plus signature, he will service you just fine on a Molten Rift plus good alternative weapon setup. Certainly his second best echo set pick. 2-piece mix and match sets include 2-piece ER %, fusion %, and attack %. As for Brant's main stats, simple. With his signature weapon, go for 4 cost crit, 3 cost fusion %, 3 cost ER %, 1 cost attack %, and 1 cost attack %. You're going to have enough ER for Tide-Breaking Courage if we add a signature, an ER % 3 cost, and 5 ER % substats. That'll allow you to go for a fusion % 3 cost, thus being pretty effective for his damage output. Great stuff. However, without his signature, you want to use double ER %. Even if you're running Molten Rift, he still gives himself attack based on how much ER he has, thus making the stat remain is quite important. You can run double ER on Brant of signature as well, and it'll only be about 5% worse than using fusion ER. His main animal will be the Dragon of Dirge, as it's the main echo set tied to Tide-Breaking Courage. It gives him some extra fusion damage bonus and basic %, so if you own a signature, there's no better choice to make. Otherwise, you can opt for regular Inferno Rider. You'd prefer the regular one, since it provides basic %, and the Nightmare Edition provides skill %, and this funky pirate dude would much rather enjoy basic %. As for Brant's substat priority, simple. With his signature, go for 1,500 attack before his Forte, 80 to 230 crit rate and damage, 250% ER, and 45% fusion bonus including his 3 cost and his inherent 2. Keep in mind that the attack stats being shown is the amount of attack that you want on him before his Forte buff. His Forte buff automatically applies itself when he's in the team, so the attack that you're seeing assumes that he's not on the team right now. I'm presenting it this way since I always like to showcase what you should be going for before any external buffs occur to keep things simple and consistent. Without a signature, assuming it's a 5-piece Molten Rift build in such a case, go for 1,700 attack before his Forte, 75 to 270 crit rate and damage, 25% fusion bonus from his 2-piece and his I2, and 180% ER. You'll have a bit more attack on his non-signature builds because of weapon passives providing attack, and having attack substats or higher base attack on his weapon, or through gaining more attack substats via his echoes, as you're no longer trying to reach 250% ER on him. Do note that this assumes that you're running a signature. Without it, the disparity between Tide-Breaking Courage and Molten Rift will be much larger. We genuinely haven't had a character this signature reliant since Yinlin. It's important to keep that in mind, considering how it does affect the way that you'd build him. A great sailor needs an equally great sword to point the way, so what'll Brant's best weapon picks be? None other than Unflickering Valor. This weapon is extremely good for him because it caters to all of his kit's super specific needs. A whole lot of ER % to satisfy the requirements presented by 5-piece Tide-Breaking Courage, some crit stats in the passive, and a tidy amount of basic %. This will literally transform the performance of this character, and its value cannot be understated. In complete honesty, the character's value decreases by quite a bit if you don't get this for him, and that's just me being brutally honest. It's not that worth using Overture for him, just don't. Yes, you get ER out of it, but the lack of a damage-based passive seriously hurts the performance of this on him. It's far more effective to go for a DPS-based sword and use 5-piece Molten Rift on him instead. However, if you don't have a good 5-star DPS-based sword for him, then yes. Overture on an ER Tide-Breaking Courage setup will work fine. Red Spring on 5-piece Molten Rift will be your next best bet if you don't own his dedicated signature pick. He gets some basic % out of the passive next to all of your other stat stick goodies, and this will generally be a second best setup on the whole. It definitely pales in comparison to the Tide-Breaking Courage plus signature combo, but it still serves as your best alternative. Emerald of Genesis offers some ER % in its passive, along with all of its other positive qualities, making it a cool alternative pick. It's good on 5-piece Molten Rift too. Other stat stick weapons such as Blazing Brilliance or other attack stick choices will be good on him if you don't have his signature. I do want to give a special shout out to Lumen Gloss for being a really decent 4-star weapon on him, outperforming all of his other 4-star weapon options. Brant's weapon situation is complicated. I cannot stress how badly you want that signature of his. Yes, you can certainly make him work without it, but keep in mind that Brant is seriously not at his full potential when using alternative options. Don't worry, you can still make him work without it, but he certainly won't be as good. Yet who shall be joining Brant's pirate crew? Well, Chang Li is the obvious immediate answer. These two are a match made in the Imperator-ordained heaven. His outro skill providing fusion percent and skill percent lends him to being a really good second slot teammate for her. He helps make her easier to play because you're able to use her on field to a higher degree of effectiveness thanks to Brant's amazing buffs for her. Do keep in mind that swapping off of Chang Li for quick swap will cause Brant's outro buff to disappear. If you play well, then it will be better than on-fielding Chang Li, but if you're not very good at quick swapping, stick to on-fielding Chang Li. Insane duo that's especially nice in Whimpering Wastes, being one of the best Whimpering Wastes teams in the game, thanks to how there's constantly damage being dealt consistently. This is what Whimpering Wastes is all about, downtimes being constantly filled with damage. He works well in Encore teams too as a splendid substitute for Chang Li, thanks to his outro skill. In fact, he'll actually be preferable over Chang Li here. This is something that applies in general. You can easily use him as a replacement for Chang Li, as opposed to using him as a Chang Li teammate. So anywhere that you would have previously used her as a quick swap teammate, you can use Brant in that place too. It can be a little annoying to have to jump again whenever you swap back into him every time so you're able to do his combo, but you're still able to make good use out of him in this way. He's less flexible as to when he can be swapped in essentially. However, Brant is fundamentally different from Chang Li. Whereas Chang Li has the freedom to swap in and out whenever she chooses, Brant actively wants as much field time as possible so he can charge his Forte. He is simply hungrier for field time, making him more tight to use since you're actively trying to squeeze out as much field time as you can. These are the things that you want to keep in mind with Brant Quick Swap. You can play him in Phoebe Quick Swap easily, for the same reason you can use a Phoenix Lady. He's good at swapping when she does her heavy attacks the same way that Chang Li is good at doing so. Not bad. The Phoenix Lady's Resonance Liberation buffs are much more preferable for Chang Li Yao, so she will be stronger, but you're still able to effectively use Brant as a quick swap option. He works with Carlotta too, as you would imagine, and she can in fact enjoy his provision of skill percent on outro. They're a good synergy, but using Jojo will of course be better. Either way, a good alternative. He can be used in Jinchi teams too for his outro buffs, but note that you want to use Verena as your final slot teammate so that you're getting some coordinated attacks in there. Chichiya will be the free-to-play friendly DPS pick. Everybody has at least a copy of her, so if you don't have any of his limited 5-star teammates, then you can rely on none other than this jolly lass. He'll suit our teams perfectly, once again being a sublime Chang Li replacement. In fact, his outro is better for her than the Phoenix Lady's outro, so Chichiya mains are eating well with this guy. You can also consider using Sanhua if you want to play Brant as a hyper carry, buffing up his basics excellently via the use of her own outro skill. This isn't going to be the strongest way to play him, but if you're interested, then yeah, it'll work fine. Final slot teammates are exactly what you'd expect them to be. Shorekeeper, Verena, Bai Chi, or any other healer that's able to buff. Yes, Brant can indeed heal and shield, but remember that a large part of the value that healers bring to the table derives from their buffing. Okay, but how exactly do you make Brant work, especially when his role in teams is so dynamic? Well, I will explain the basic way to play him, which can easily be molded depending on the scenario. So, intro, ultimate, mid-air basic part 2 hold, basic part 2 flip, mid-air basic part 3, basic part 3 flip, Forte skill, echo, outro. It seems complicated, but in practice, he's actually very easy to play. The ultimate goal at hand is to access his Forte nuke as soon as possible. Feel free to rewind if you need to see the rotation again. Yet how does this funky pirate lad work? Well, his basics will deal 4 simple fusion strikes. If he's in midair, he'll do grapple-based strikes. His basic 1 and basic 2 have the ability to be held in the air. Cool. As for his skill, he'll deal some fusion damage and then launch himself into the air. If his Forte bar isn't full, his skill will be replaced with a plunging attack while he's in midair. As for his liberation, he'll smash the targets with a huge anchor, dealing a ton of fusion damage and launching himself into the air. He can gain a large bonus amount of attack based on the amount of ER he has above 150%, which caps out at 2,600 attack. He also generates Forte stacks twice as fast, with the attack buff lasting for 12 seconds. As for his Forte circuit, Brant will have the same ER to attack conversion, but to a weaker extent. Using his liberation is what enhances the effect. He'll heal his teammates when his Forte bar reaches certain breakpoints, and when his Forte bar becomes full, his skill will be replaced with a special Forte skill that will deal a large amount of fusion damage and generate a shield. He can gain Forte points from dealing basic attacks, using his intro skill, or using his resonance skill. As for his intro skill, it will immediately launch him into the air in basic attack 2 state, which is why it's important to intro into him when rotating with him correctly. As for his outro, that's where his excellent fusion percent and skill percent buffs are stored. This adds super solid value to his kit overall. As for Brant's inherent skills, simple. His I1 increases his healing. Nothing much else to add here, just makes him more comfortable to use. Do not use him on Rejuvenating Glow. That is a stupid waste of a brand, because even if you don't have your signature, you want to take advantage of all of the damage he's capable of dealing. His I-4 provides him with mid-air interruption resistance, not to mention 15% more fusion damage bonus. A pretty solid I-4. As for his Forte priority, simple, go for this. His Forte circuit makes up literally half of his overall damage output, so it is paramount that you completely focus in all of your resources there. Then level his basics, as they're a huge part of his kit, and don't neglect his ult either. His skill doesn't feature any important scalings, as the Forte is what houses the important aspects of it, so it can be ignored. His intro isn't really a major part of his damage output, so it can also be ignored for efficiency's sake. Want to dump your life savings into this pirate? Then let's talk sequences. This makes him offer some quality of life to your gameplay experience, since he can stagnate enemies now, as if he wasn't already casual friendly. He also gains a nice damage increase thanks to the increases in his damage dealt. Good S1. This turns Brant outro into 2 hits of good damage, while also offering him a ton of free stats which makes him easier to build. Not a necessity by any means, but it's a nice improvement to his damage output. A nice multiplier increase to his Forte attack. Nothing much else to add here, great S3 considering how much of his damage is weighed in on that. This is mostly a nice quality of life sequence, as it makes your gameplay experience smoother more than anything else. It won't do anything for you in the way of damage, but if you needed even more sustenance from Brant, well then here you go. A nifty increase to his basics output. Good stuff. This S6 is okay. It'll obviously be busted because it's an S6, but it won't be as overwhelmingly game-breaking as, say, Jinshi or Camellia's S6. Still good though, and the entire lineup ties together to create an extremely comfortable to play unit. Obviously prioritize his signature above all else, I cannot stress that enough. His sequences are mostly nice bonuses more than anything else. If you really want to complete the character, then get his main dedicated weapon choice. If you want sequences, then I'd honestly stop after getting S1 unless you want to go all the way to S6. Brant's the entire package. Casual friendly, super duper fun to play, and the Chang Li buff that I've been waiting for, man. If you want a good character for Whimpering Wastes, or just want a really versatile character for your account in general, then Mr. Brant Wuthering Waves is the way to go. It does hurt me a little seeing how horrendously signature reliant he is. I was kinda hoping that we left the Yinlin kit design strategies back in 1.0, but it is what it is, and he'll still be serviceable on alternate builds. Definitely a fun choice. But what do you think of Brant? Are you impressed by his bravado and power level so far? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to get your Brant commanding his enemies to walk the plank. This has been Juice, signing out. And this idol of his where he eats oranges is peak. I used to eat like 7 oranges a day. I had to stop because it was bad for my teeth. I still eat them quite frequently though. I like the juice inside of them.